The NLDS series between the Philadelphia Phillies and New York Mets is off to the races and going exactly how we did not need things to start. The game started off beautifully with a one-run leadoff home run by Kyle Schwarber to give the Phillies the lead and put them in the driver's seat. And to add to that, it was an absolute gem pitched by Zack Wheeler in this matchup, proving to be the exact ace that this Phillies team needs. But things went directly downhill from there and ultimately resulted in Game 1 being lost at the hands of the New York Mets. The final score being a 6-2 loss, and as you can see with the box score at the bottom, a crooked number in the 8th inning as the Mets pour on 5 runs. An absolute disaster by Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm on the mound there, and ultimately it leaves the Phillies in a really difficult situation here. In this video, I want to break down exactly what went wrong, why Zack Wheeler is continually being left out to dry by this Phillies team, and why there needs to be some hard-hitting conversations within that locker room now. Now let's start off by acknowledging the greatness of Zack Wheeler. He is the guy that is the ace this team needs, the guy that we knew would be stepping on the hill for the opening game of this. And ultimately, that he delivered completely here. To break down exactly, and I do think that Jeff Passan puts it greatly with this tweet here, he says, Zack Wheeler is done, and he was brilliant. 7 innings of shutout baseball, 1 hit allowed, 9 strikeouts, and 30 swings and misses. A 111-pitch gem in a 1-0 game in where every single pitch can be the difference between a win and the alternative. A true ace. That is exactly what Zack Wheeler is. That is exactly what he has been on this Phillies team, and it is everyone else that is letting him down. And to continue that, to add to that, shout out to Adam Arison of the Philly Voice, who tweets out that Zack Wheeler has made 3 NLDS starts with the Phillies. He's pitched a combined 19.1 innings in those starts and has only allowed 8 hits and 5 earned runs. The Phillies have lost all 3 games. Now, outside of Kyle Schwarber and Zack Wheeler, there needs to be a hard-hitting conversation within this locker room here. There were not a ton of competitive at-bats. Zack Wheeler was screaming for any bit of run support throughout the entirety of that game and just straight up did not get it. Yes, it's great that he was able to pitch, to be the electric pitcher that we know him to be, but now it puts this team in a tough position because the rest of the team was not there to carry it. And for the bullpen specifically, for Matt Strahm, for Jeff Hoffman, you guys have been excellent all year. There's no doubt about it. But the playoffs are a different beast, and you were unable to up your game there. And now for this Phillies team, it brings some significant questions here. As there was all this talk, I've broken down on this channel on a ton of different angles about how Cristopher Sanchez is starting Game 2 for Aaron Nola to start Game 3. Well, this is not a casual Game 2 performance by Cristopher Sanchez. Yes, it's going to be great that he has the home crowd behind him, but he's got to deliver, because if this Phillies team goes down 2-0 before heading to New York, they are in a world of trouble, and we're no longer talking about much of a season at all. That we're probably looking ahead to the offseason. This is not an ideal situation for this team. Now, to acknowledge exactly what went wrong here, I do want to touch on a bit of the box score. And first, Matt Gelb kind of contextualizing things of The Athletic here. He tweets out that the Mets 6 and the Phillies 2. After Kyle Schwarber's bloop single in the 3rd, the next 19 Phillies failed to collect a hit. It is the first time the Phillies have lost a Game 1 in the Rob Thomson era. The Mets now lead the NLDS 1-0. Now, to dive a little deeper into the box score here, doing a look at each of these batters here. And it's the big names that we're talking about here. Schwarber did his thing. He delivered. That he hit that leadoff home run, which absolutely set the tone for the game. Both Schwarber and Zack Wheeler are very much in my graces here, that those were the guys who did their job. Hashtag do your job. Just lock in and do your thing. Then when you look beyond that, Trey Turner, some really uncompetitive at-bats at the plate. Really not a guy that I was impressed with his performance today, and I'm beginning to have those concerns about Trey Turner. Yes, he's been better than he was last year, but is this guy that can truly contribute to a championship contender in the way that this Phillies team is built around needing him to do? Then there's Bryce Harper. Not overly hard on Bryce, that he did walk twice here, didn't get a ton to hit, really no pitchers going his way here, but that does speak to the next up in the lineup with Nick Castellanos. This has been a point of concern of mine during the Castellanos era. I think in general, I'm more net positive on Castellanos than the general consensus here, but the plate appearance, the plate approach that he comes with is really frustrating these types of high pressure environments here. And you have to punish teams if they're not going to pitch to Bryce Harper. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If they are walking Bryce Harper twice in a game, as was the case today, then you better have a guy behind him that you're intimidated to throw to as well, and that doesn't feel to be the case. Then look down one more slot in that lineup. Alec Bohm still does not look quite right. That this is a guy who looked like one of the best hitters in baseball for most of the season, but really has not been the same since suffering that injury, and ultimately did not put much of an effort at the plate. Not an effort thing, but ultimately was not able to come through it for this team. Bryson Stott, a guy we've still been waiting to wake up all year. A guy that I held out my dark horse hope that he could be a guy who pops out of his shell in the postseason and outperforms what he was able to do for most of the regular season. In Game 1, that did not prove to be the case here. And to continue looking deeper into it, JT Realmuto had a run ultimately driven in by Cody Clemens, who put together the best at-bat of this team in the entire game in that ninth inning as a pinch hitter, that he worked to count, fought for his pitch, and ultimately lined a double into the right field, which scored a run, gave it a little bit of juice. That type of plate approach, that willingness to battle, is the difference between this Phillies team and this Mets team right now. And to talk about putting that into perspective here, did want to pull up these exact stats here, that the Mets hitter before the 8th inning just 1 for 21. The Mets hitters in the 8th inning, 4 for 4. That is when they piled things on. And that is the one thing that we have to get straight about this Mets team. I don't think they're as talented as this Phillies team, but they're a team that's not going to quit. They're going to fight for all 9 innings, every single out, down to the last one, and that track record is just straight up. The evidence is there from what they've done for the second half of the season. Just look at how they took down the Brewers in that 9th inning with that 3-run home run by Pete Alonso. You should know this about this team right now, that you can't let your foot off the gas. And for me personally, I'm incredibly frustrated by the bullpen. I think you can put equal blame here. It's the bullpen and it's the plate, the plate approach by this Phillies team. That I was frustrated by the lack of competitiveness, the unwillingness to battle in the way this team did, or really just frustrating approach. That if you just give any bit of cushion for this team, I think we're talking about this with an entirely different tone. But it was this high stress environment from start to finish in this game. That Schwarber, it was that ease off the shoulders that you got in the driver's seat. You took that 1-0 lead. But you have to build on that. You cannot be content. And that's what it felt like today. That there was a whole lot of Wheeler's taking care of business. We got our bullpen. We're good. That is unacceptable in the MLB playoffs. That this is a Phillies team that was originally constructed to hit absolute nukes. This is the team that is built to produce runs and hit home runs, take those big swings and deliver for this team. 1 run through most of the game is just unacceptable, and that has to be better moving forward. It can't just be Kyle Schwarber being the only guy hitting in this lineup. And shout out to Kyle, man. That truly is as much of a winner as I've seen in the sport of baseball. A guy, the way that he goes about his business, the way that he carries himself, and the way that he delivers, a leader by every definition, a leader of men, and a guy that's just a damn good baseball player there. Now, looking at the bullpen, this has been one of my driving forces of optimism for this Phillies team. Then you date back to past years, the past 2 playoffs, in which they've come up short of their World Series aspirations, there were those chinks in the armor in the bullpen. That has not been the case for the entirety of this year. Guys like Jeff Hoffman have been lights out. Matt Strahm has been excellent this season. And then it just fell apart in the biggest moment for this Phillies team. So now my concern being, we've seen some mental toughness from this Phillies team before, but realistically, this is not a good decision. This is not a good situation here. Now, to talk about the exact situation, and I will be dropping another video with Luke Arcani tomorrow to dive a little bit deeper in this, but as things are currently slanted, it will be Christopher Sanchez jumping on the hill tomorrow for this Phillies team and looking to even things up. Sanchez is a good pitcher. He's done great this season, a guy who has far exceeded my expectations and been, in my mind, the biggest storyline of this Phillies team. The fact that you have the confidence to throw him in a game 2, I think is really telling of how productive that he has been. But the bottom line is, you now have to come through, Christopher Sanchez. This is not Wheeler's fault by any means. He did his job. He was the ace. Kyle Schwarber looked like the guy that was meant to be on this team. But baseball is a team sport, and every single one of those guys has to #do their job. Lock in and get things done. What is in front of you is what you have to take care of, and too often that was not the case today. So it does make me wonder, will there be some conversations about, is Sanchez the right move for game 2? Are they better off going with an Aaron Nola, who is the more proven veteran, the number 2 arm on this staff? There's no doubt that Nola is still the better pitcher than Christopher Sanchez. It's about stacking your cards in the way to give this Phillies team the best advantage possible, and unfortunately, they took their advantage away by dropping game 1. So I'm not fully hitting the panic button here, but this Phillies team needs to wake up quickly, because this is a Mets team that will punish you. Yes, the Phillies are more talented, but they were more talented than the Diamondbacks last year, and we all see how that went too. So now there's got to be a real conversation within that locker room. Pick yourself off the mat, and you got to get ready to go to work tomorrow. This is a really difficult spot for this team, but I still think there's a chance for this Phillies team. I'm not ruling things out yet, but an incredibly frustrating loss. The concerns that we didn't want to be there showed once again. That it was all too reliant on the big stars, the big names, the guys that did deliver, and ultimately not a lot around the edges there. And even I'm kind of talking like the big stars, meaning the guys that came through with the Kyle Schwarber, the Zack Wheeler, guys like Trey Turner. You are a top dollar guy, but you're kind of not in that category for me because you haven't played like that for the entirety of your tenure here. I kind of view a guy like Trey Turner with a little bit more grace than probably should be the case. But the reality is, now it is back against the wall time. Now this is a team that needs to feed that underdog mentality, that you no longer are these top dogs who have this clear path here. You got to take care of business and beat this Mets team. So ultimately, I still hope this team finds a way. I'm incredibly frustrated by how things went down. It was a picture-perfect script for the night, until it wasn't, and things fell apart. So we will see what happens tomorrow. I will be back with you guys in the morning with Luke Arcane and recording a new video, so make sure to stay tuned for that. The best way to make sure that is the case is by smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video, and any comments that you have below. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the matchups for tomorrow's game, where this Phillies team needs to change things up, if there do need to be some moves within the lineup, everything else that we have to get into with Luke there. So make sure to stay tuned for that tomorrow, and appreciate you guys for rocking with me tonight. It's going to be a war this series. There's no doubt about it. So I hope you guys are buckled up and ready to go with me. Once again, make sure you smash that subscribe button. I'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Go Phils.